Chica, my friend, good evening. Can you hear me well? I guess you can, right? I didn't want to stream, but I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna give it a shot. Give me a second. I'm nice. All right, let's try that. Nice. Okay, cool. How is your life, Chica? What are you working on? Oh wow, you got a split keyboard. That changes everything. Now your code is gonna suddenly start working better. Nice, man. Nice. All right, fair enough, fair enough. I thought it changes everything, but I was wrong. Oh. Okay, so wait a minute. So we did that, right? So this in theory should kind of work. Yeah, we'll see about that soon. I'm waiting for this thing to get deployed to npm to get for this publish job to finish. All right, cool. All right, so now things are kind of working, so that's good. That's better. So now the actual headings are working. Okay. Don't drop the Cedric, my friend. Good evening. How you doing? I wasn't sure if I'm gonna. Who is Gento? Chica. My brain is. It's too late now. Good, man. Good. My wife just went to bed, and I just wanna. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go and stream a little bit, right? Ah, Linux disto. No, I haven't seen the post. No, sorry. My brain took a while. Profile header. All right, so that now explains it. Okay. All right. So now, technically, the styling is working, I guess. Yeah, exactly, right? What about you, Cedric? What are you up to, my friend? How is life serving you? What was the post, Chica? What is the post about? Share it. Share it if you can. Tiring and stressful. Sounds reasonable. All right, so this is messed up. Sure. I see. Sure. Okay, so what's happening here? What do we have here? We have this. We have that, right? Okay, and then where's this? Yeah, okay. Did you share it? Because I don't see any link. Maybe links are not allowed. Very weird. Did we give me 1 second. Input text default switch select. Okay, that's a little bit weird. So what happened with the styling of this? Name, value. Yeah, that's slightly weird. And this button as well. Are all buttons messed up now? Let me see. Yeah. So let's see what are the things that are still messed up, because we'll have to change a bunch of this crap now, because all of the headings now are actually properly rendered. So the button itself is messed up as well. Let me take a look at this. Button outlined. Where is the outlined button? It's actually fine in this context here, but it seems broken there. It seems broken in our context here. Let's take a look at that again. So what do we have? Create a course. So basically I added the prefixes to Yale library that we wrote, the core library, right? And now things are a little bit messed up, it seems. Create a course. Item label. Okay, let's go over here. We must have some button. Yeah, here it is. This fella over here. So what's up with the styling? Oh wow, really? No, I don't think so. Let's reload this and try that again. Button. Probably missed some updating some class. Let me skim through that quickly. All right, give me 2 seconds, Chica. I just need to. So basically, just for your context, what I did in the core Yale library, right? I had to add a YL prefix, right? So last night I went through the whole library and I had to update every single component we wrote, appending the YL, right? Because we had, I've noticed in the core project, in the front-end project, the programmer network, we basically had kind of class collisions and stuff like that, right? So let me actually go to that button, and so probably I missed some class or something, right? So let me just go, I need to stare at it a bit. PY tracking. I'm sorry, I just not allowed opacity, text primary background color, BG primary, transparent. Yeah, I mean everything honestly seems okay. I don't see a single issue here. So I wonder what's up with the rendering in the core project then. So let's try to rerun this again. It's a little bit crazy that we're not getting. Oh wow, okay. Wait a minute, what? Okay, so this is what we missed. So we did miss it, all right. So we missed this guy. So that's one issue. That's good to see. Yeah, that's great. Is that the only place where we had appearance? Yeah, it did. So yeah, we can see that in theory, if we've done like, well, this class is not generated now, but this is what we missed. Okay, and then what's up with this guy? Is there something there that's not rendered properly? Let's inspect that. Wait, I just need to stare at this inside of a VS Code for a moment. Let's see what we have. Is there something that's missing this prefix? It doesn't seem so, right? So it seems fine. Yeah, it seems okay, if you ask me. So there's something messed up with it. And what is this? This is, if we go again to the layout. So we have a button here. So this is the button itself. What if I... And it's not the outline button, it's the full one, right? Give me 2 seconds. What if I say outlined? Yeah, so the outlined is fine, but the fill one is messed up, right? Okay. Because these are the only 2 things now I see the issue with. Bexy friend, good evening, how are you? Okay, let's give this whole thing to a ChatGPT just so it can review it for me. Let's just go to my Jean-Code Van debug and say, did I miss any of the prefix in my Tailwind component, just to see if something's missing, and then potentially it could be also in the button. Let's take a look in the core library here if like let's inspect my last thing. So let's see what we did. So blah blah blah, that's good. That's good. That's good as well. Did we miss a spacing or something? No, okay, that's good. PG primary, hover, PG transparent, hover, EL text primary, hover, fill primary. So that's also good. Relative, flex, item center, justify center, yeah. Okay, so, so strange, man. That's incredibly strange because, yeah, so we're actually not, thank you everybody for your follows. So we're actually not missing anything. That's a little bit weird. So what's up with the button? Let's try to find some other places, and we'll have to update a lot of our stuff here. I just need to pin this. I always forget whenever I start the stream. Okay, cool. So let's see. It's a few other places where there's a button. Is there? Yeah. So button seems to be consistently messed up, and based on this thing, right? Let's take a look. So BG primary. Maybe. Wait a minute. So it's this color is being. So yeah, so this is the issue, right? We can see the precedence issue here, right? We can see that the background color is basically overwritten by something. Wow, this is so weird, man. Jesus Christ, okay, this is so strange. So what is this that's resetting the background? Yeah, this is probably Tailwind doing, right? You can see here we have the button, Above appearance button, background color transparent. So that's so weird. Wow. That is so weird. Cranberry wine. Good evening, buddy. How you doing? Yeah, yes. So basically, yeah, that's so weird, man. Why is it applying this to our button like this? Huh. That's so strange. Good, man. Good. I wasn't sure if I'm gonna stream, but yeah, my wife went to bed. We put our son to sleep, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna have a very quiet and slow stream, because I would code this anyway. So I just figured it's more fun doing it with a few other people being around. So yeah, so let's ask ChatGPT why. Let's go back to. I haven't seen you in a while, man. How is life? Yeah, I don't need important, man. That's not what I want to do. It's so annoying. It's so useless. No, it's just, this is very interesting. Like, why would, I mean, this is so weird, man. Programming network, SRC, asset, SCSS, index. Wait, where's this thing? Index, SCSS. Ah, okay, wow. No, sorry. I was hoping for something, but I was wrong. I was almost hoping that I found it, but I didn't. So yeah, so it's definitely the utilities we're getting from here that are doing this, right? So what if we just put this here? It should solve the problem. What if we just load this CSS first instead? Will that solve a problem or not? Let's try this again. No, not really, right? Yeah, man, this is very painful. Very annoying and very painful. I literally namespace the whole library, and yeah, now we have this issue. I mean, we can of course smack important, but that defeats the purpose. I don't want to do hacks like that, right? Why is this being overwritten, right? It makes zero sense. Like 0 sense. If we go to our core library, right? Let's take a look at the button again, right? But it's so weird, man. So super weird. No, so everything looks fine here, right? So all of the applied classes right now are actually okay. So that is correct, right? It's just that we are having a conflict between, you know, here what we upload, right? And I'm sure that these lines are coming somewhere from here, right? So background color, transparent. Let's search for that. Yeah, here it is. So basically it's the resetting part that's messed up, right? Yeah, right, so you can see here that we have a few of the occurrences of that, and in actually, let's just try to say, yeah, here it is. So that's one. Okay. So it is the core library that's the issue. So let's take a look at that. Why is that? Let's go to our Tailwind config and also Tailwind CSS over here. Yeah, everything is Tailwind. We're not using any third-party libraries or anything like that. So it's all Tailwind, right? It's just that this library itself, the library that I wrote, the Yale library, right? It exports some defaults, some resets, which is okay, but they take the precedence over these styles, which makes zero sense. Or in simple words, they're loaded later in time, right? And applied. So you can see here, if we go to the actual button, this is the problem, right? And I don't know why is this generated in the first place, right? Or at least why the order is not correct. So where can we take a look at that? Prefix. So wait, Tailwind, because I prefixed the whole library last night because I realized that it was conflicting with some of the other styles in my project, right? So let's see if there's some other stuff that we have to do, but I don't think so. Totem, my friend. I am playing. I mean, jazz on guitar and saxophone. I mean, I played jazz today on saxophone. Let me show you. I have this other YouTube channel of mine that I created. I started playing saxophone like, what was it? 3 weeks ago. So I have some videos I can show you. Give me 1 second. Where is it? Switch account. Why I'm not seeing my account here? Alexander's saxophone journey. Yeah, here it is. So this is me playing saxophone today. Wait. I don't know if you can hear this though. Can you hear this audio? I guess you can. I don't know if you can actually hear that from this. Yeah, it's my 3rd week of saxophone journey. Yeah, for sure, Totem, for sure, man. It is mostly metal. It is mostly metal. Okay, I mean, of course, the way we can solve this is we can just smack this important on it and hope for the best, right? Do I like this? I don't know, not really. I don't really like this, but this will ensure that these styles always have the... Give me 1 second, let me take a look at that, because as I don't want to spend any more time on this crap. What? It's on my list. It's on my list for sure. I'm learning now Take 5. This is what I've been playing. This is what I've been playing lately. Okay, so now basically it's smacking the importance on it. Let's deploy this and see. I'm not very happy with that. I hate the existence of important keyword, but at the very least, this will always ensure that our core library, our Yale, is always going to have basically, it's always, the styles are always going to be applied, right? Totem, I didn't know that you like music, man. That's very good, dude. I've been a musician my whole life, I've been a guitarist and a singer, and yeah, now I also gonna indulge on a saxophone journey for next couple of years as well. That's good, man. We never spoke about music. I almost played music professionally. Luckily, I moved away from it as my career, because you know how tough music industry is. For a living, it's not the kindest area you want to be in. So work is amazing, man. Standard stuff. Leading my team, mostly spending times in the meetings with the clients. But it's good, man. It's good. It's just I don't code that much at work anymore. I'm mostly brainstorming and trying to solve problems, and then other two guys in my team are coding it. So it's yeah. So it's good, man. It's good. I can tell you that while I was programming, that job was a lot easier than not programming. Now I need to bleed my brain every day at work looking for solutions and stuff like that. So it was a lot simpler when I could just put my headphones on and write code. That is the easiest part of programming. Everything else is harder. All right, let's wait for this to get pushed to npm. How you got fired, man? What happened? Damn, man, sorry to hear that. That sucks. That sucks, man. Yeah, I mean, well, you should be happy that that you're not there. You don't want to work in that place anyway, man. So I'm sure you're gonna find a new job very soon. I mean, you have to free yourself from technology in general, right? There's always going to be it's all about perception and about, right? React is by far the most popular UI library out there, right? And it has the most jobs out there and stuff. So whatever you think that you freed yourself from, right? The chances that when you find a new job, it's going to be a React again are very high, right? So fundamentally, you know, I mean, a lot of people are talking these things, right? Not realizing that these things is exactly why they have a job at the first place, right? Golang is amazing. Golang is my favorite language. I love Golang a lot. It's a beautiful language. Oh, yo, Matt, my friend, Angular is not better. If you think that React is shit, then yeah, good luck. Going back to Go, Go is beautiful. Go is a beautiful language, and I would always bet on Go. Go is absolutely amazing. All right, that's great. So this worked. Let's go now and just fix up a lot of these things. I see. Fair enough. I mean, I love Angular as well. I worked with Angular 1 more than a decade, no, maybe 12 years ago. And I worked with Angular 2 as well. And then I built some consulting project, I believe in Angular 6 or something. But I stopped counting these versions because at one point in time it just became ridiculous to even count anymore, because it was like every minor patch they did felt like they're upping the major version. So I stopped counting. Huh. Currently Nitrogen, I was fixing the so basically I realized that my Yale library, the core library that I wrote for Programming Network, the UI library, this one, I realized last night that actually it was conflicting with the styles of this front end itself. So what I did last night, you can see if you inspect some of the components here, is I had to add this prefix config inside of the Tailwind configuration, and then I had to update all of the components, adding the prefix manually. So you can see now all of the classes for Yale library have this YL item in front of it. And now, after all of this time, I'm seeing that now actually some components are in fact loading properly versus how it was before. So now I'm just going to go quickly and yeah. Unfortunately, ouch, that's really bad. Yeah, so this is not good. Yeah, man, I'm sure you're gonna get your job very fast. No question about that. Okay, so, but yeah, this important stuff didn't actually work quite well, so this is very unfortunate. We can see here that, I mean, I'll try one thing, but I don't think that this is gonna work. Let's see. Okay, it does work. Okay, well, sure, then we're gonna do it that way. So we have this one to reset, kinda, right? And then we have the paragraph somewhere, I presume. Item actions, yeah, and then we should go back here and then hit this file. And of course, if anybody has any questions, of course, ask. That's why I'm here at the first place. And then we have this bad boy here, right? Which is basically just the rendered content. Okay, so that's okay, right? So if we go in here, we have this thing now, which is a profile header, I guess. So hopefully I can fix up these things fast. Yeah, so that's okay. Yeah, that's fine. So that's okay. Then we have these guys, which is let's just nuke this stuff. Zyra, my friend, good evening. Good to see you, man. Thank you for coming. Thank you for spending your precious time here, man. I appreciate that. Profile alt articles. I don't actually remember how I call. Okay, and these are the cards, right? Yeah. These are the cards, and it's a little bit weird. I thought at one point that if we go to the core library and we go to this cards component, right? Yeah, okay, so it is pretty huge. So let's fix that, right? Huh. Had a nice day. Yeah, my son is a little bit sick still, so I was working from home today and our past 3 days. Just had to help my wife and, you know, stuff like that. But overall, yeah, the day was good. The day was good. I mean, I don't allow my day not to be good, right? So, so yeah, day was great. I would say it has to be. What about yourself, man? How was your day? Raps, good evening, buddy. How's life? Some old fellas coming here. Very nice. How you doing, man? How is everything? Okay, so that's better, I think. Yeah. So this is, I removed these LG classes because I don't want that that enormous amounts, enormous size, right? So that's better, right? And actually, what I didn't do, shoots them, my friend. Good evening. Actually, it's a little bit weird. I guess I'm not running these tests in my CI. That's why, because I'm sure there's like shit tons of tests that are gonna fail now, because I haven't even updated the snapshots and stuff, right? So I'm actually gonna go and I need to fix these tests, right? Because I updated so many things, right? So because I'm sure that our tests are fundamentally missing a lot of this stuff, right? So let's go and fix these tests, right? So let's go one by one. I just need to. And we need to make sure that on the Yale, on the core library CI, that we are in fact running these tests, right? Because the CI should not have succeeded. Okay, let's see. Has correct styles when not disabled, not loading and filled. Expected the element to have class. Man, that is amazing milestones, reps. Good job, man. Great effort, dude. Great effort, man. The life is about to start very soon. Text color changes when exceeding maximum characters. Okay, so I suspect, yeah. So I suspect we probably are missing some classes here, right? So let's see, is this fixed? Yeah, that one is fixed. Expected element to have class. Okay, so let's search for this. Yeah, exactly, right? So we just basically forgot to update these, to add these prefixes, right? So that's great. And that's not correct. I meant to say this. Okay, cool. We're gonna skip that one for now. What is this one? So yeah, so there's something with this that's wrong. That's a little bit weird. Has correct styles when disabled and filled. So let's find this one. So what is happening? Button, yeah. So it's missing prefixes, it seems. This one is missing a prefix. Okay, one more failing. And we should be. Yeah, I mean, you know, life is very life is funny when you observe it, right? When you're young, you want to be old. When you're old, you want to be young. When you're going to school, you want to start working, and it's very hard to it's very hard, you know, to satisfy people. I remember when I was younger, it's like, man, I can't wait to finish school. Then you finish school, then you start working, then you're waiting for vacation. So human beings are always waiting for something, right? And that something never really comes. But we keep on waiting, right? You know, so that's why there's this book that I read maybe a year or two ago. It's called The Power of Now. I'm not spiritual, I'm not religious, but this book is kind of spiritual in a way. You also have the book on YouTube. It's called The Power of Now. It's a very strong book. It left pretty deep kind of philosophy on me. It's written by this German guy, Eckhart Tolle. I don't know how you pronounce that. He used to be a drug addict when he was 20. He almost died, and then he changed, blah, blah, blah. And the book talks about exactly this, how human beings basically always, you never live now. You're always waiting for something, right? Exactly. So this book is about mindfulness, right? It's like, and I, you know, for me, the book had an effect for a couple of days, but then I lost that thought. Then I went back to the old stuff. But I remember one analogy from this book that kind of stayed with me, and it was about, you know, when you're in a bus or in a train or in a plane, right? You're waiting, you're just waiting. You're like, oh man, I sat on station. I sat on this station and I'm waiting to arrive on the other station, but you're not living in between this time when you're traveling, for example, right? So you're just waiting to get to the destination, then you're going to continue living in a way, right? So there's a lot of these very pretty simple things, right? That yeah, I don't know. It was quite revealing for me. But yeah, very interesting. Mindfulness, yeah, that's a good word. Mindfulness, exactly. I'm actually I'm doing a consulting project now, and my pleasure, man. Somebody on YouTube saying, yeah, absolutely. It's a great book. The audiobook on Audible is even better. If you have Audible, I think on YouTube there's a full book. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. There's a whole book. Yeah, here it is. So here it is. In case you guys want to hear it, it's even better than the textual book, because I think the author itself is narrating it. So it's kind of, he has a very soothing voice, very calm voice. So if you really kind of try to listen to it, it kind of calms you. It's almost like, you're meditating, right? Give it a shot. All right, so this is cool. A little bit painful, but yeah, let's wait for this thing to get ends up on npm, and that should be good. Then we're gonna kind of go and fix up the stuff. I'm very happy with the outcome of that, because I really want to get done with these refactors finally, hopefully soon, because then I want to build a new feature as well. Yeah, it's absolutely a great book. I mean, again, I'm not spiritual. I'm not religious. I'm a scientist in a way, right? So it's always has been a conflict of science and spirituality in my head. But that book was very nice, and unfortunately, it evaporates from your brain very quickly, because that sort of stuff is, you have to practice that. You have to, because you will hear or read, in case you read it. The book really is about appreciating moments now, right? When you're going outside, you might even think at the beginning that it's bullshit, so give it a chance, right? Don't be judgmental towards it. You don't have to conceptualize these things. As enforced by anyone. You can create your own concept around these things, right? So if that author might seem religious or whatever, who cares? You don't have to be. But it's very interesting when you try. And I tried, when I'm running outside, when I'm exercising. I live here by the sea in Copenhagen, by the beach. So you try to, just breathe and, appreciate the nature around you, the trees, the sound of wind, right? It's crazy, right? It sounds like bullshit, right? But it's not. Like, genuinely. It genuinely isn't. Like, I saw it firsthand. It's quite useful, actually. Yeah, exactly, shoots them. I mean, I haven't put much energy into it, but it's quite useful. I think you need both physical and mental exercise, right? Because, we live in a very, very quick times, very stressful times, right? Very changing times. And nothing is worse for a human being than constant change, right? It creates uncertainty, it creates anxiety, right? It makes people, unable to calm down, right? Okay, so this is acceptable. These titles are now suddenly acceptable with the latest deploy, right? Yeah, this is big ass. This is still big ass. Yeah, we might need to tune it down a little bit. This is also suddenly a lot bigger, but it's fine. I actually don't know why is this so huge. Did I, like, by accident increase the size of this? No, yeah. Yeah, that's weird. Maybe it is the size that I had before. All right, there's a question. Let's do a few questions, guys. I'm very happy to answer some of these questions. Give me 2 seconds. All right, so let's do the question or two. The question is, if I want to build a chat in my application, is it better to use document database? I've heard for chat the performance of the SQL can hurt. Do you have experience with that? The answer to this question is very simple. Shoots them. You can use any database you want. You have no users right now. You have 0 users. Your main concern should be building the application, putting it in front of the users, and that's a huge challenge, right? You can build, I've spent a lot of time on building programmer network with the latest stuff and top-notch and unit tests and stuff, and nobody's using it, right? So what is the point of building something that nobody uses, right? So it doesn't matter what database you use. If you reach a moment where you have so many people chatting, and then you have performance issues, you have already succeeded, right? So you have to shift your mentality when building these products, right? Just build it so it works and have 2 people chatting first month, and then 5 people, and then it takes hundreds, thousands of people for you to reach these performance issues that you're talking about, right? So build things and put them out there. And if I could explain to you past 17 years working for startups with what type of code base we've raised millions, you would be shocked, right? You would be shocked to know how many unicorn companies that exist today raised 100, 200, 300 million euros or dollars on a code base that barely works, on a code base that is patched, etc., right? So again, as I always say, the most important thing in your career, especially if you're junior, is not to get influenced by these so-called Twitch heroes, Twitter heroes, YouTube heroes, right? Because a lot of these people, as I said before, their full-time job is to create content, so they have to talk crap all the time, right? In reality, when you're building your product that has no users, it might never have users ever. You can use whatever API language you want, front-end language you want, whatever, because it will not matter, right? If you see that you succeeded, you can change things, improve things, and changing to a different database for your, let's say, chat now takes 2 days of work or 1 day, right? So, at the end of the day, you don't even have to preserve your chats, right? So this is what I would do, right? So as I always say, be pragmatic, practical. That's what all of these ancient books tell you. This is not my philosophy. I'm not in any way smart in that sense. This is philosophy in programming in the industry past 30 years. And just focus on building things and try. You will see when you will see when you build things that the hardest thing actually is getting users, right? There's so many products today, and it's so hard to create something that has value for customers, right? So it has never been easier as today to build software, and ironically, it has never been harder to gain some users because it's such an oversaturated market of apps, of products, of all of the stuff that people actually are running away from it today, not running towards it, right? So focus on getting users and, worry about scaling later because there's nothing for you to scale right now. You're the only user of something that you probably haven't built even yet. So that's my response to you. Lenzo, good evening, buddy. Becca, good evening, everybody. So this is yeah. But a great question, Shoots them. Great question. What is this? Let me just, I hate these notifications. I don't know why Midjourney is giving me these notifications. I literally muted this channel. So annoying. All right, so going back to this thing. And of course, if there's other questions, please make sure to ask. Okay, yeah, I didn't use Discord and that stuff, so I never know. I thought that I muted it. I literally can't care less about that stuff. Aha, okay, so basically it's this component, no results props. Okay, let me just go back here to Yale, and this is called, I believe, what is this component called in my core library? I think it's called call to action or something like that, right? Yeah, CTA, I believe it's this. No, is it? Wait, give me 2 seconds. So this is my abstraction for the dashboard list. Yeah, it's CTA, it's this one, yes. Yeah, I mean that's good, man. That's good. I mean, it's people are literally getting mentally demolished by these things, right? So I'm absolutely with you. It's too much, right? That's why I generally don't post anything on the Discord that I have. It's not that people care anyway, right? But yeah, I just don't. Yeah. Wow. That's so weird, man. Why? Okay, never mind. So that's okay. Wait. Interesting. Now we're in a perfection type of mode, right? I'm sorry for that, but it's a little bit annoying. Where's this call to action thing? CTA. So these are the tests. So yeah, so basically it's because this is H2, right? So that's why it's that large. You know what? I mean, okay, screw it. Let's just let's leave it as is. It's not a big deal, I guess. This is also super weird, but we'll see about that. Okay, so let's leave that as it is. Let's go back to the localhost. So let's see if there's something completely and apparently broken. So this is kind of okay, I guess. What are this? H5s. Let's try H4s just for fun. Yeah, maybe like that, right? Yeah, okay. Well, that's not too terrible. All right, cool. What else do we have? Meetups. I mean, the thing is, right? The thing is, again, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna repeat myself a few more times. The thing is, like, as I said in many of my YouTube videos, whenever you are getting an advice from someone, right? It can be a super popular YouTuber, even some Twitch star, right? Check where they worked, right? Check if they actually ever had a real job, right? Because keep in mind again, it's so easy to get influenced by all of these fake messiahs of programming, right? A lot of these people actually never worked, you know, built a real product, right, with a real team, with real requirements. They keep talking about scaling issues, but they never really had any, right? So this is it's a very vicious circle, and it's a paradox if you ask me. You have a whole generation of developers talking about performance issues that they never had, right? They're basing these opinions on the previous experiences, right? Like there's literally no language out there for 99% of people that doesn't scale, right? Literally everything scales, right? You are taking hyper successful unicorn companies, right? Which is what 10 out of 100 million or 10 million companies, right? So don't take me wrong. I'm not suggesting that there aren't better languages and worse languages, of course. And if you are having fun and if you have all the time in the world, and of course, if you're starting a new project, of course, you're going to make good technical decisions. No questions about that. That's not the point. The point is that literally like PayPal.com is running on Node.js, right? And then you have a random 17 years old guy living with his parents coming to Twitch and saying Node.js is slow. A person who so it's not slow for PayPal.com and it's slow for you. You built a 6 lines hello world controller, right? So it's ridiculous, right? And these things are just it's a vicious circle, right? Because you have YouTubers, you have people who are making living off of content, right? They have to talk crap, they have to make dramatic things, they have to create this echo chamber, right? Which is why you have all of these things, right? It's mostly nonsense, right? Node.js is an amazing technology which has enabled thousands of companies in the world to even exist, right? How amazing that is. How amazing it is that you can build a company with minimal amount of people with limited budget that you have, right? I mean, try starting your own business and see how hard it is, right? How amazing it is that there's something out there where 1 or 2 persons can just sit and build amazing things, right? That's incredible, right? It's a miracle, right? 20 years ago, you needed 10 people for that. Now you need 1 or 2, right? And that's really what matters, right? And once you grow as a professional, once you grow up as well, you realize these things, right? You simply grow up, basically, right? That's really all that there is. Yeah. I mean, it's of course. I mean, again, don't forget, a lot of these people, they live off of this type of stuff. I don't blame them. I don't criticize them. It's not about the content creators. More power to them, if you ask me. It's just you have to develop basic critical thinking skills and problem-solving skills. You cannot call yourself an engineer if you are basically like a sheep just jumping on conclusions because somebody said something, right? I have asked countless people in this stream, hey, you say, X is slow. Okay, well, can you give me an example? Where was it slow for you? Can you give me an example, John Doe? Where was, I don't know, PHP slow for you? Not some dude somewhere on the internet who said it, right? You get what I mean? And nobody ever gave me a single answer. That is the irony, right? There's always someone else who had these issues, right? So it's very childish, and just run away from this type of stuff, man. If you want to be a good... Yeah. Exactly, consumers are. I agree. I agree. I agree with you. I do, I think. Give me a second. Yeah, I don't have these cool commands, unfortunately. My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm gonna try to talk a little bit quieter. My wife has been knocking the wall. She's trying to sleep. There's absolutely zero correlation between code quality and raising money. Zero. You can have a perfectly written product that's useless, that nobody wants to pay for, and you can have perfectly crappy software that solves problems or some problem for the customers, right? So there's zero correlation between the two, right? The quality of your software in most cases doesn't determine the success of your product. It never did, right? Quality of your code matters primarily because it increases the speed and scalability of your teams. So better the code is, easier it is to build new features on top of it, right? UX has nothing to do with code, right? You can have great user experience with terrible code, right? Like I can code this component in the shittiest way possible, right? But it can still look good. It's just the code that makes this is terrible, right? Like I can use inline styles here instead of Tailwind. I can use wrong HTML markup, right? I can use, aside here instead of li, right? So that's semantically wrong in the context of code, but that code would still output the same looking component, right? So again, there's not necessarily too much correlation between good UX and quality of code, right? Well, I mean, it really depends what you mean by that, right? Because again, like this is the most popular magazine on the planet, right? TechCrunch, right? You must have heard about TechCrunch. This is running on WordPress, right? If we take a look at let's say Lighthouse, let's see. TechCrunch is basically Silicon Valley's tech magazine, right? If you ever succeed with your company, you will want to be on the TechCrunch homepage for sure, right? Let's see how they perform. Let's give it a second. So, for example, right, if we do basic metrics, which are not that relevant, but if we do them, right, you'll notice that TechCrunch, most popular nerd magazine for businesses and startups, you could say performs terribly, right, by some metrics, right? Does that mean that it affects their business? No, zero. It doesn't affect it at all, right? If we also take a look at the Google's page insight, so these are some just random tests. We cannot check their code, right? But even if we do that, right, if we go to SRC and we go to content, you can see they're using WordPress. This is their CSS. We could audit this, figure out if it's good, right, or not. If we go to their JavaScript, This is their code. This is pretty much their whole JavaScript, right? Minified, obviously, right? No, Lanzo, I'm 100% with you. I just think that we're maybe elaborating it a little bit different, right? UX is the most important, right? User experience. User experience doesn't necessarily depend on code only. If you're building a web, like for example, look, user experience of programmer network is simple, and that's good, right? Code of programmer network is great. That's also good. It's amazing. Everything is amazing, but the product is useless, right? That's why nobody uses it, right? And that's exactly the point, right? Building a useful product that you can sell is way harder than building a amazing software that's perfect in every sense but nobody uses, right? So me sitting here and writing some perfect code and unit tests and stuff means nothing because the software itself is useless, right? So that's one of my main points, right? You can write any code you want and it might not yield any results. You can also write a shitty code and it might yield many results. If the thing that you're building it at the right time, solving the right problem, right? In my opinion, dates are missing on posts. Let me instantly do that. Give me 1 second. Let's do that immediately. Because we used to have that. Yeah, actually, they are here. Is this what you mean? Or you mean the thoughts here? Maybe, wait, so they are here? They're also here? Or you want to see an actual date? Oh, on the thoughts here, right? The thoughts are missing dates. Let's try to add that. Let's take a look at our Redux store. Actually, are we even using Redux for that? No, I don't think so. Okay. Got it. Let's fix that immediately. Let's fix that immediately. I guess we want to show it somewhere in the header, right? Yeah, okay, but before we do that, give me 2 seconds. Let's take a look at what do we actually get. So let's print the thought. Am I passing by the stuff from my API? Created that 1 month ago. Actually, we do. So it's actually weird. I thought at one point that we were actually doing that. Okay, let's do that. Data, thought, okay. Thought header. Display date. Okay, so I am actually showing it, but something got messed up, most likely. Let's print that. Okay, it's because it's undefined, so it was a regression, right? I see, okay. So let's fix that. I know what the issue is. Okay, now I remember now. Okay, so if I go to the actual feed, right? Here in the feed, we have this infinite scroll. Yeah, over here. So let's fix that. Should be pretty easy, right? Actually, you know what? We're gonna do it here. It's okay. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say created at, right? Then we're gonna print this bad boy. That's good. And display date. And now if we go back there, should be working, right? There we go. 7 days ago. 1 month ago. And this is a little bit weird. We actually have to fix that one as well. Can I explain Redux? Absolutely. I can explain Redux. Okay. So let's get to that. So we have a new question, and the question is, can you explain Redux? Okay, let's explain Redux. Redux or Flux concept is fairly simple, and we can explain it, right? So let's explain Redux, right? So Redux is basically, Redux is a state machine that's composed of few concepts. Reducers, actions, and we have a state, right? Because basically we have some central state, right? Right. Now let's imagine this, right? So let's imagine this. Let's imagine you have a program, right? That looks like this. Or no, var x is 5, right? And then you have some function foo that prints something. And we have function bar that does something else. So let's imagine that bar calls foo, and foo changes x. Now if I call bar, right? If I call bar, what happened? Well, bar called foo, foo printed this, and then x was changed to 1. So if I print x, we'll see that x is 1, right? Okay, cool. What the hell does this have to do with Redux, you might ask? Well, you can see that this x we are reassigning manually, right? So we just use this x in our whole program and we give it some different value, right? So what if we could describe these things based on how our state changes, right? So instead of us manually mutating our values like this, what if we invented a pattern where for every state change, we have a function executed, and that function carries some, under quotes, metadata about what that change is, and then we have another function in which we describe what does it mean to change x. So we have a reducer, and that's what a reducer function is. Reducer functions, the reducer concept comes from a reduce method in JavaScript, for example, from functional programming. It just means reduce something to something smaller usually, right? So what if instead of this, we had a function called function change x, and here we describe something, right? We say that this function returns some type, and this type is called change x, and then we have a value, right, that we want to change this x to, right? So we do something like this, right? I don't know why JSBin is complaining. I don't think there's any unmatched things. Everything looks okay, right? Let me just save this and refresh. I think it's JSBin messing. Oh. Yeah, I think it's JSBin doesn't. Okay. So now instead of doing this, right, var x is 5, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to call change x, right? So I'm going to call change x here instead. And I'm going to say 1, right? Of course, this is not going to do anything right now because we haven't implemented the rest of the stuff. But now I'm calling this action, and this action describes that I have some, there's some state that I want to change, right? Now in your reducer functions, right, you're describing what each of the actions mean, right? So here I can have my reducer function is just a normal function, and this reducer takes an action and a state, right? And then based on these two things, it yields back the new state, right? So this thing is going to have const state 2, right? So you can see now if I pass some action, meaning change X, right? And I give it a state that I want to change, it's going to yield the new state, right? I don't know if I should keep on going with this, because how does it work on my website? It's a very complicated question to answer, right? But I can show you. So when it comes to programmer network, right? Redux is used in several places. It's used for the command system. It's used for various different things for global state, right? And we can take a look at that in the Redux DevTools, right? So you can see here. Yeah, of course I can. So let's go back to chatting. So the question is, can you explain what's the pro of using Redux over the native context hook? This is a very common question, actually. It's a weird question, right? You can see this question on YouTube. You can see this question all over the place. This question is comparing apples and oranges, right? These two things are vastly different concepts, right? Redux is a state machine. It's a full-fledged state machine where you decouple your state and your state transitions into a separate place. You decouple it from your components and your view library, right? So in theory, your Redux, you can replace your React with Vue.js, for example, and your Redux store is still valid. You would just reinstall a different library, so you wouldn't use React-Redux. You would use, I don't know, React-Vue, right? The driver between Redux and the Vue library. So Redux is a state machine, and context API has been invented to prevent prop drilling, and that's the main reason why it was made, right? So context has very little to do with Redux. In fact, React-Redux npm package is of course using the context API to pass down the Redux store state, right? So for example, if you ever used Redux or Redux RTK, you will notice that there's this hook, custom React hook called useSelector, and that hook is using the context, so you can actually, under quotes, subscribe to the Redux store without passing the object through every single component, right? So these two things have very little to do with each other, right? Or in fact, even better said, they complement each other, right? And yeah, state machines are great, right? If you have an application that's relatively large, if you like to keep your state separated from your view, because in reality, right? Keep in mind that let me just switch to the drawing board, right? So if we go to the drawing board, right, your components always, no matter what you use, Svelte, React, Vue, Angular, jQuery, Knockout.js, Ember.js, whatever, your components should always be as pure as possible, because they're just pure functions, right? So your components ideally should get in some attributes, aka properties, and yield some HTML. Your components, whenever possible, should be, again, as pure as possible and deal with as least amount of things as possible, right? That means that you should not transform data in your components. That means that your component, so for example, let me give you an example. Let's imagine that you have a component that's called person. Or no, let's imagine you have a component that's called article, right? This article might have title, contents, created at, whatever. Let's keep it simple, right? Right. I know that every single one of you in this stream now have done this. Let me tell you what. You have this created at, right? And you're thinking, you know what? I'm going to get this, I don't know. I'm going to get this created at, which is some, local time format or whatever, any date format. And inside of my article component, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get like import some date utils and then convert this date to whatever, right? I know that you've done this. You're probably doing it today, right? This is a very minimal example, but then extend your data and you're going to understand what I mean. And I don't do this, right? I like to do all of this stuff before the data enters my component. So I basically always do my best to give exactly what my component needs. That's why also, if you do this well, and you have a very good front-end facing API, you obviously have some Node.js or Go API in front of your front-end, right? You have an API that your front-end is talking to, right? Like this. And vice versa, right? Goes both ways. Request response, right? Let's just say rec res, right? You want this guy. Your goal always, absolutely always, should be that this guy does every possible transformation it can and deliver the data as dumb as possible to your UI. A lot of people in the front-end industry are talking about how front-end became hell, how front-end development became painful. And that is absolutely true. But it's not for the reasons that you think. It's for the reasons that a lot of things that we did in the backend 20 years ago, year by year, we moved it to the front end. Oh, we can do it in the UI. Oh, we can do it in the UI. Oh, we can do it in the UI, right? Due to that mentality, your front-end application now does more work than your backend. It does everything, right? It does too much. So what should be your goal if you're doing front-end development? You need to keep things super stupid and super simple. Pure components, give them as data as ready as it possibly can be. Use state machines when needed. So for example, if you take a look at some of my Redux code, let's take a look at it together. If we take a look at my Redux store, let's look, for instance, at comments. You can see here that all of my complex state permutations are happening inside of my state machine. Like comment. If I go here and I write a comment, I cannot like my own, but if I did, that's not described in my component. My component doesn't care about the logic to like the comment. Why would it? It has nothing to do with that. My components need to show these three things, and it needs to show this number either incremented or decremented, right? But sometimes it's part of offloading some processing to clients to keep service costs low. Absolutely, but these are the things that no. In most cases, it has very little to do with that, right? Because your server is way faster of doing these transformations than your UI is anyway, right? So I don't think that has any honest, genuine reasoning in this discussion now, right? Your UI again should be always as dumb as it possibly can be, right? And these types of things that I'm showing you now as an example, they don't belong in your components, right? They belong somewhere else, either in your container component, either in your anywhere, but just not in your components, right? Your components, let me show you the comment system that I built for Programming Network, right? It's a great example of that, right? So if we go to the comment section system, look at this. This is my comment system, right? And if you have ever built a comment system, you'll know how painful it is because of recursion, because of various different types of things, right? Because in a comment, you have these threads, right? So I can reply this thread here. Let me show you. So you can have threads, you can have likes, dislikes inside of the threads, etc., etc., many actions, right? But you'll notice one thing, for example, I even have a custom hook where I have abstracted out the Redux logic from my component, right? So if I go here, I have this use comment actions, and my comment section is not even tied, sorry, my Redux dispatching logic is not even part of my actual component. So I can test my component very easily because it's not even bound to any context of Redux itself, right? So if we take a look at this stuff, you will notice that there's absolutely no permutation of data in any way, right? It's just calling some functions. If we go to comment list, this is my comment list, as you can see. I'll just skim through it very quickly. So I'm saying here, hey, if you're editing a comment, show the comment editor, meaning, hey, if I click this edit, we'll show the comment editor there, blah, blah, blah. But you will notice again that there's absolutely zero data permutations in here anyway. No matter where I go, if I go to a single comment, you can see it's just view, and it's super nicely organized. Components are broken into small manageable chunks, so you can see comment header, comment content, comment actions, minimal amount of props. How did I achieve minimal amount of props, you might wonder? Well, you can see that if you go a little bit up here in the tree, if we go to the comment section here, you will notice things like handle reaction, right? A lot of people are very often, so a lot of times when you're designing your props, your function arguments, we're all very prone to do things like handle like, handle dislike, handle X, handle Y. But you can often group that in a single handler function, as I did here. I have a handler reaction, and reaction can be of any of these reaction types, for example, right? It can be a like, dislike, create, edit, delete, reply. So I could have designed this in two ways, either as I did here, or passing 6 different props. Handle like, dislike, X, you saw it, Y, Z, right? So all of these things, when you account for them when designing your components, you can end up with, you can see here, now I have a single handler for these types of events, handler reaction. Well, we can't use a switch because there's some exceptions in here, but it doesn't matter. Like, let's in theory say you're right, we could use it, yes. If all of them are using React, yeah, we could in practice do that, yes. But you get the point, right? So you can see, so the original question was, what is the difference between Redux and context, right? And I went a little bit too far with it, but you get the point, right? Yeah, that's, I don't know, went a little bit too far, but that's my take on it. Yeah. Programmer Network is not an open source project, but there's a bunch of open source libraries that I wrote for it. You can find them all over here. But the entire project is not. But you can see I wrote a bunch of Yale library, the whole UI library that you see, that is open source. So this is what Programmer Network frontend uses, and you can also check them in a storybook. So this is open source. So all of these components that I used to build the platform, yeah, I open sourced that, right? My pleasure, my pleasure. All right, cool. Where's this date coming from? This is a single thought. Okay, we'll need to fix that as well. Let me just drink some water. Give me 1 second. All right, cool. I don't actually know where we are, to be very frank with you, but let me keep on going. So let's keep on just finalizing some of these last regression, update, whatever, changes, views, tag header. There's a lot of these things that we'll have to eventually improve. If there's any other questions, please ask. I really enjoy these discussions. They're super awesome. Interesting. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that is the, okay, cool. Okay, so and then we have, yeah, we have these types of things, right? Yeah. Everything is built by me, yes. All of that stuff that I shared with you is built by me, yeah. So this whole, every single library there. Oh, we have a new subscriber. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. But yeah, all of the stuff under here, all of these libraries are built by me, yes. Some Fastify stuff. This is a very interesting validation hook for React. I also built this for Programmer Network. This is how I do form validation for this project. So this is also a very interesting library to take a look at if you wish. I use this for Programmer Network to basically validate all of the forms using AJV. And I'm doing this in isomorphic way, right? So let me show you one thing. So this is really awesome. So basically, so the reason why I built this library, this use AJV form, right? What is AJV? AJV is another JSON validation library, schema validator, right? And the way that I found out about this library is when I started using Fastify.js, right? Fastify.js is using AJV as a validation library for the request, response, URL parameters, for all of the schemas. If you haven't used Fastify before, Fastify essentially validates, and I'll show you that on my own API. But when you define, and let's actually take a look at Programmer Network API, right? So if we take a look at here, so if we take a look at some of my own controllers, right? Let's go to user controller, or the router, sorry. So if we take a look at my own routers, you can see that in Fastify.js, all of your endpoints are validated using AJV, right? So if we take a look at some of them, so you can see here that, for example, let's find something more interesting. So you can see this is my JSON validation schema for the body. So I'm saying when you do a put request to /users, this is the data and this is what it needs to be there, right? So when I started using Fastify, I realized, what if I started using the AJV in the front end as well? In an isomorphic way, I can literally share the same schemas between front end and back end, right? So I can have the same schemas. I can even deliver them to the UI, over HTTP or whatever. And that's when I built use AJV form, right? This library here. This basically library works really well with Fastify because you can feed it the same schemas that your API is using, and your forms are also going to be validated in the same way, right? So for example, this thing, as you can see, it's not like TRPC. No, this is literally just this is just like so AJV is basically just a validator, right? You give it JSON data, you give it a schema, and then it validates the data against that schema, right? and it's apparently very fast JSON library. It's the fastest JSON library out there. So, but anyway, for my use case, for my personal use case, I'm using Fastify, right? So I built something in the UI for me, right? So I built this because it plays well as a system with my API, right? Because I basically, in isomorphic way, reuse the schemas both in the front end and back end. Because keep in mind, Programmer Network project is not using server-side rendering like Next.js or anything like that. My API and my front end are fully decoupled, right? So my front end is just, using Axios and calling my API, right? So this is a very interesting one, right? So as you can see here, when I built this, you create a form object, you give it a state, and then you give it a schema that's going to validate that state. And here I have extended it with a few options that you can pass. You can find the options down here, like the dirty state, revalidate, on blur, whatever. You can enable a bunch of different things. But that is the core idea, right? And then how do you use it? Very simply, you just say, here's my input, form.state.title.value, and then on blur, right? And then here I basically explain that, hey, you can create higher order function if you want, higher order component. If you're too lazy to do this manually like this, you can create a higher order component, and then you can, just, cut yourself some slack and, remove some of the repetition, right? But either way, yeah, this is the idea. The idea basically is that if you're using Fastify as your API, and if you're using React as your UI library, you can basically then share same validation schemas between both, right? AKA some more fake, right? So that is practically what this library, how this library was actually made, right? And why. So give it a shot if you want. It's pretty cool, I think. Oh, okay, so there's more questions. Wait. Okay, wait, let me just move this here because there's more questions that I want to answer. Where is it? Full camera, right? No, chatting. Oh, we get another sub. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's answer a couple of more questions. Huben Leet shared some link. I'm going to take a look at that soon. Static protocol, actually, I'm going to take a look at that in a second. So I'll just answer a few more things. Is it possible to convert Fastify API from JS to TS without creating a new project? Yes, it is. I mean, you would have to go file by file and just update the project, right? So you would just simply have to go to each one of your files. First thing you would convert, you would add a TS config. So you would add a TypeScript config file, right? You would init the TS in your project, and then you would set some very loose rules. So for example, this question, I think, is very general. It's a very good question. In simple words, whenever you're switching from JavaScript to TypeScript, no matter what it is, your API, your front end, your library, right? The process is always gradual, right? Especially in real companies, in big code bases, right? Typically what you do is you set up the TS compiler, you set up the TS config, you set very loose rules like allow, any, whatever, and then you create a strategy with your team to gradually, as you're touching files, you just turn them into TypeScript, right? And then in a couple of months, generally, your exactly, that's correct, Lenzo. Yes, you can, yes. How did you pick up such good patterns? Your learning approach is natural. I've been just doing this job, man, for 17 years now, so I'm by no means smart. It's just repeated the same crap a million times. That's it, really. I've been working since 2008, almost every single month, so that's it. There's nothing impressive about it. It's just repetition, repetition, repetition. It's the same in sports, it's the same in science. You just repeat the same crap all over again. and you just get good at it. That's really all that there is to it. No secret there, no mentors, no. It's just a lot of work, a lot of companies, a lot of experience, and it's nothing special or nothing great. Knowledge comes with experience and a lot of mistakes. Yeah, I can just tell you that based on my experience, I've been writing all of these things with plain JavaScript and jQuery and Ember and Knockout.js and all of these things, is that don't get influenced by anybody. Libraries and frameworks, they come and go. Don't allow yourself to be a sheep these libraries, don't make them important. Don't pick sides, right? Just build things and be valuable to your employer or to yourself, right? And that's all that matters. These libraries, Reacts of the world and stencils and sveltes and stuff, they come and go every year, right? But experience and critical thinking and problem solving skills and trying to focus on building value, that is always in need. Every company wants to hire somebody who focuses on these things, right? So don't worry too much about these frameworks and stuff, right? Because nobody cares. They're obsolete in a couple of years, right? Mo LM, are you still there? There was somebody on YouTube asking a question. Are you still there? But the best advice you can have: just build things. Show your if you want to show your skills, show them through building things. It's as I always say, it's very easy to talk. It's very easy to be smart in discussions, but at the end of the day, the only thing that really reflects your abilities is the things that you can show for, right? Everything else is just nerdy, sweaty talk, right? That yields nothing, right? It's just a waste of time. Okay, cool. Okay, let's answer another one. Most resources. Okay, so the question is this: since I'm coming from Java Spring background, I'm used to very opinionated frameworks. I'm personally struggling with how to structure my React projects. Most resources dive into using Tailwind and stuff, which I want to postpone until I've learned all the basics. Well, I mean, your question is a little bit confusing, right? Because I wouldn't necessarily say that Tailwind has anything to do with the structure of the project itself, right? So, of course, if you don't know CSS, then you should certainly learn CSS first before you use any utilities, right? Tailwind is a CSS utility library, right? And even if you use it, you still need some CSS knowledge, right? Because you still need to know what a border radius is, what a letter spacing is, what a flex is, what a grid is, right? So Tailwind is not going to relieve you of these things anyway, right? Yeah, exactly, right? But either way, right? Some of these tools can help you, right? But the CSS is the most fundamental skill of web development, right? No matter what you hear on the internet, if you don't know CSS, you are pretty much useless, right? Because you can write perfect code. If you build products that look like shit, then it's pointless, right? I mean, imagine you go to a car shop and they tell you, look, you see this box that you're looking at, that's actually a Ferrari. In the inside, it's just the shell is from Volkswagen too, right? And you're like, yeah, but I mean, I want the Ferrari to look rad and like look cool. Yeah, no, it is a Ferrari. The engine is Ferrari's, but the rest of the car, it's Volkswagen, right? And you're like, what? So right, so it's the same with CSS, for example, right? So when it comes to structuring React projects, right, I wouldn't worry if you're learning that right now, right? I think, again, as I always say, let your reason take you to these places of structure, right? So, for example, if you're just learning React.js, Just put everything in a single folder. Who cares, right? And then use reason, right? Because you said you're a Java developer. I'm sure that you've been using folders and various other organizational patterns to organize your code, right? So instead of holding you back from learning, from making progress, and boring yourself with all of these details, right? I would just say build things, right? I mean, heck, put 30 different components in a single file and then compose some view, right? You want to focus on learning the APIs of the language, of the library, right? Of how it works. And then you can always take these little chunks of code and put them in a different place, right? So don't worry too much about this perfection up front, right? Because you have to choose what it is that you're learning, right? And I would say, find some website and try to mimic that website by using any of these tools. If you're trying to learn React, then, and of course, minimize the amount of things. And this what I'm saying applies to learning anything, really. If you want to learn Go, don't add a database or instantly. Don't add caching mechanism like Redis. I want to learn Go, and then you start learning Kubernetes. Like, no, man, just learn Go. Hard code your database, right? Hard code some array of objects, whatever, right? So it's very easy to fall into trap when trying to learn new things. Then you allow this scope creep to jump in as you're learning things, right? Just focus on one tiny thing and build with that, right? Otherwise, you will never learn. This ecosystem is so huge, right? I mean, past 1 hour, people have, mentioned 10 different state machines only, right? So it's impossible to do that, right? So in simple words, if you want to learn React, focus on writing components, passing props, and just focus on that, right? Let me tell you what I mean. Look, let me tell you what I mean. Start writing React components, right? Create some sort of a view, right? Create a view like this. And I'm just gonna illustrate something. Draw something by hand. Say, I wanna build a view like this that has these boxes, right? And then I want something like this, right? Actually, you don't see my screen. Let me just share my screen, sorry. So start something like this, right? And then put, if you want, everything in a single file, right? All of these components in a single file, right? Then compose these components, put another component in here, right? And then put another component inside of that component, right? And then you will realize certain things. You will realize that you need data in a certain place, in a certain way, right? Then you're going to end up having some state here in your container component, right? And then you will realize that you need this state inside of this component, right? Then you're going to pass this state to here. This component is going to pass it to this component. And then this component is going to pass into this component. Then you're going to realize over time, it's like, shit, man, I'm passing this object 5 levels down, right? I mean, there's literally like level 1, then there's 5 of them, man. So I'm passing this state, I'm doing this prop drilling, as it's called, right? And then your instincts are naturally gonna start kicking in. You're gonna start asking rational questions. It's like, man, there has to be a better way for me to pass this data from top to bottom. And maybe this data really has to be here, right? So maybe it has to be here. Then you're going to start asking questions, man. It has to be a better way to get my data from here to here, right? You see where I'm going with this. You cannot learn everything at once. It's impossible. You have to start simple. You have to build a simple thing and fall into these traps. And this is where you instantly learn. This is where things instantly stick in your mind because you had this issue. You cannot start learning about, let's say, prop drilling without ever getting into this issue. That is the problem with people who learn all of these APIs randomly. You wake up one day and you say, Let me learn context API. You just woke up, right? You saw some YouTube video. You're like, yeah, let me learn context. Why? There's no difference in waking up one morning and saying, you know what? I'm going to go to Amazon and I'm going to order Jigsaw. You know what? Today I'm going to learn how to use a jigsaw. What? Why? Right? You wake up on Thursday and you're going to be like, I'm going to go and buy a hammer and use it. Right? You see where I'm going with this, right? So you need to build simple things that will lead you to the more complicated concepts. In order to learn this concept, you need to get to the point of needing that, right? You need to get yourself to the point where you're like, shit, man, I'm passing this data through 5 components. This doesn't seem right. There has to be a better way. And then you're like, there is a better way. There's the context, for example, right? There is a better way. There's a context, right? And every single underlying library in React, including React Redux, is using this context API exactly for this reason. Because your, let's say, even Redux store is defined somewhere on the most top level. You have some provider, but in here, you're like, use selector, right? Oh, wow, how can I do that? This is so cool. I don't have to pass these things to 5 levels down. You can do it because we're using the context API, right? So the point here is, as you can see, to just summarize this, is there's a lot of concepts that one can learn. Some of them you might never need, right? There are many hooks in React that you will never use in your life, right? But you will use them if you need them, because you will find them. Your problem is going to lead you there. You know, there's a bunch of these hooks in React, like use imperative, right? Like use imperative handler, right? You're going to need this once in your life, maybe, or 10 times, right? But if you need it, you will find it, because you're going to start Googling. Oh, man, we need to do this. How do we do this? Oh, shit. Oh, use imperative handle. That's exactly what I need, right? Use ID. This is life-saving. This is what I need, right? But I'm sure that many of you never even seen this, right? And there's no shame in that. You never needed this utility, right? So the point is, you don't learn technology by heart. You don't wake up and say, okay, today I'm going to learn use ID. That's never going to stick in your brain. It's impossible, right? There's no point in that. So I would say this is how basically I would learn anything. And in this context, how I would learn React as well, or any other tool, right? I would start building simple things and let the issues lead me to more complex concepts as they arise. That's my take on it. Give me 2 seconds. All right, it seems we have more questions. Is writing automated tests waste of time when the project is very green and haven't been tested in the market? I'm gonna have to be real, as I always try shoots them. There's no really other way to write tests and write them at the time of implementing things, right? Test-driven development, behavior-driven development is not something that you do because of others. Test-driven development is a way of work, right? There's some developers out there that have built up consistency, discipline, and they made writing tests part of their workflow. So they're not thinking about tests as a side effect of code. They're thinking about code being a side effect of tests, right? So in simple words, if you're ever going to write tests, you have to establish that workflow. You have to establish, it's a very hard thing to build such discipline, right? Because, and of course, developers are lazy, right? Developers are going to tell you, oh, I'm not writing tests because there's no time. Oh, my boss didn't allow me to write tests. All of this is a lie, right? All of this is the absolute absolute lie, right? If you're not writing tests and you're watching me saying this now, you're not doing it because you don't have the discipline. You haven't learned how to think in that way. You haven't built up your skills in that way. And the only person who's fault for not writing tests is you, right? So it's always good to write tests. I mean, but again, you can see the way that you formed your question shoots them already implies that you're not, that you haven't established this type of work that testing is not part of your workflow, right? And testing is not part of most developers' workflow, right? But the only time to write tests is now, because the biggest fallacy in programming, or one of the biggest fallacies in programming, is like, let's just build it, we're gonna test it later. You will not test it later. That's a huge lie, and it's up to you to decide. I'm not suggesting that having tests is a must. Having tests can give you some certainty, prevent some regressions. You know, it's very satisfying when you see these green check marks, of course. Does it mean that having tests means no issues? Of course not. Issues can arise due to lack of domain knowledge of a developer, due to lack of, due to wrong business logic. So it's not that test-driven development is some sort of a bulletproof system against bugs. But saying that tests are not useful is ridiculous and stupid, right? They're absolutely useful, and you should write them whenever you possibly can, right? If somebody tells you different, it's just stop talking to that person. That's really my take on it. Okay, let's see more questions. Do you have some good resources for learning more about test-driven development? There's really no resources you need, Lenzo. Test-driven development is an incredibly simple concept, right? You're testing input and output, right? So learning how to test takes 5 minutes. Embracing test-driven development way of working takes years. That is the problem. So unit testing is the easiest type of testing, especially on both ends. For example, integration tests are very difficult, or end-to-end tests, because in the front ends as they are today, with all of this complexity and stuff, it takes a lot of time for one person to even set up end-to-end tests. So this is a little bit different domain, right? Unit tests, you can learn to unit test in 3 seconds, right? But what it takes a long time is for you to establish this workflow. So when you start implementing something, you're starting with a test. You're starting with some assumptions, what you want this to be, and then you're writing expectation by expectation in your code, right? So that is the whole point of unit testing, right? Exactly. So think about TDDs to understand what programmer said. You should write the test from the business perspective, else you just test your implementation, which is not a good. Exactly, right? Because your implementation might be wrong. Your test might be passing on something that's inherently been written wrong. So for example, if you write a function that's called double, but you don't know multiplication table, so instead of doubling, you subtract, you're just really bad at math, and then you write a test that supports that claim, your test is going to pass. But multiplication has nothing to do with subtraction, right? You get what I mean? So just because your test is passing, it doesn't mean that your logic is correct. You get what I mean? So what you wrote in your multiplication function is your own expectation of what multiplication is, but it might not be what it is. You just suck at math, right? So think now, transfer this to understanding the business logic, domain logic in the software you're writing. Maybe your product manager gave you an equation that's wrong, and you have implemented the equation. The equation works by the tests of it, but it's wrong, right? So you know. What are your thoughts on separate testing in development teams? Very bad thoughts. I think that having QA teams is a terrible idea, always has been. Every single developer should be responsible for their code, with or without tests. So you as a professional, you should never be forced to write tests, but your code is your responsibility. So if you push something today to production, and if it breaks, you have to fix it. Of course, it's not fascism. It's not to say that your colleagues are not going to jump in, but having somebody that takes your shitty code and tests it is ridiculous to me, always has been. It's like, yeah, I'm going to write this garbage and I'm going to offload that to some poor guy who's going to find these 15 bugs. That inherently, as you can hear when you say it out loud, creates bad habits for your entire team, because you're basically indirectly saying, nah, I don't care. If there's bugs, this guy is going to find them. So I would never employ QA teams. I don't like that. You're responsible for testing your own code. That's how I think, at least. George, thank you very much, man. I hope you're gonna stick around, dude. But whenever you have the questions, I'm always here to answer them, of course. At least share my opinion. Please take it as a grain of salt. Opinions are like buttholes. Everybody has one, right? Okay, let me read the rest of it. I feel like I'm learning new things about the problem and its solution while coding. While TDD, I feel like cheating because I end up changing my tests during the coding phase because of new insights. Well, that's the whole point of tests as well, Moel, right? Tests are not something that hold the absolute truth, right? Requirements of your project are going to change. You're going to, as you said, learn new things. You may be going to realize that the initial implementation is wrong. But when you change your implementation, these tests have to fail. And when they fail, they have accomplished their function. The function of that test was, hey, I failed. Why did I fail? Did you change something by accident? Or did you change something explicitly? I have changed something explicitly. Okay, well, update the test to reflect that. Or I actually didn't change this explicitly. It was a mistake. It was a typo. Okay, fix the typo, right? So the whole point of that test, or the main point at least, it's not the only one, is to give you that fail step. It's to prevent your continuous integration server to push code to production, and then you decide, was it a mistake or you forgot to update the test? So there's nothing wrong with that. That's why you have the test in the first place. Do you mean developers should write unit integration? And yes, absolutely. Of course they should. I mean, writing unit tests is not a second job, right? That's not something you decouple from your everyday work, right? I mean, writing unit tests is not design work or marketing or accounting or something that us as developers have no knowledge about, right? Nobody has more knowledge about the code than the developer who wrote it, right? So it's natural that the developer who wrote their own code will test their own code, right? I mean, nobody is more close to the code written by one than the one who wrote it, right? So it's ridiculous to decouple these two things. That's my take. Don't take me wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. QA teams exist for 30 years, so I'm clearly not a smartest guy in the universe to neglect all that. It's just my personal take on that is I'm not a fan of QA teams at all. Yeah, that's it. That is it. What do you think about separate DevOps team? I think separate DevOps team is great, yes. The thing is, DevOps is also a very skewed term. It became very relative term, right? Because very long ago you had sysadmins and you had a lot of different roles. Because DevOps today essentially is a mixture of it's a mixture of infrastructure people usually, and then some in between people who are supposed to enable the rest of the teams, if they need either certain tools or services or whatever, right? But a DevOps team makes sense, right? Because DevOps team fundamentally isn't involved into building the product itself, right? So your DevOps engineers are not building your UI or your APIs. They're just making sure that UI and API is up and running, right? So it would not make sense for them to be part of the development team, right? They are kind of a separate entity. And they satisfy the needs of all of the engineering teams. You might have a UI team, a backend team, data scientists, right? Well, the DevOps is there for all of them separately, right? I mean, the thing is, like as I said when we were just talking about something else, I think Lenso, the reason why I personally, at least for myself, memorize so many of these things is because I experienced them, right? And that is the beauty of experience, is that when you experience things, they just stick, right? It's very hard to forget because you always have this reference. You always hold this reference, right? Towards some event, something, some failure, some success, right? And again, the opposite, it's very difficult to go to Udemy or YouTube and learn Kubernetes because you're not using it, right? You can learn some of the things, sure. But the moment you finish with that, there's no application for you to use it to solve the problems, right? So the hardest thing about trying to learn these things like that is that you need to use them, right? Leo, my friend, I love you, man. Good evening. So this is kind of the problem, right? So the easiest way to learn things is by having hands-on experience, right? Rando, so if a small team, say 3 devs, 1 front end, 1 back end, and a lead, whose responsibility is to handle versionings and deploying stuff? Well, I would need a little bit more context, Rando. What type of application is it? Are you deploying a web application, or are you deploying an executable that you have to build in a Chromium for 6 hours, and then users have to download them incrementally or binaries and then install them, right? So it depends on what type of deployment is. If it's a web app, right, you should have a Circle CI or GitHub Actions or whatever, and you should deploy every single day multiple times. No question about that. It's nobody's responsibility, it's everybody's responsibility, right? I mean, in my team, I'm a tech lead. Where I work, we probably deploy 20, 30 times a day. Small patches, big patches, we deploy all the time. Incremental updates every single day. We don't allow big PRs, basically. So as soon as you have something great, it has to be in production. Is it better than what's in production? Yes. What is it doing on your computer? Why is it sitting there? Why is that amazing improvement sitting there? My team consists of 5 people. 3 are developers, 1 product manager, and 1 is a designer. But it doesn't really matter. If it was 50 developers, it would be no different. It would just be slower, probably, because now you have to code review, 50 people, right? But fundamentally, your case, if we stick to your case, it's nobody's responsibility. Your tech lead should be saying what I'm saying to you now, and he should, at the very least, be the one who proactively creates this type of system, right? So he should be the one who should be at the very least, pushing for the CI and stuff like that. And you can set up your CI in your stack in 2 hours, right? Yeah. Rando, I mean, be careful, right? Be careful about that, right? Try to use these opportunities as a blessing, not as a curse, right? I mean, these are the things that you should embrace with both of your hands, right? It doesn't matter. Screw CTO, right? Screw your company. That's irrelevant, right? Try to use these opportunities to learn, right? Try to learn new. These are the opportunities. When you're in a startup, right, you wear many hats, right? You might be a front-end developer, but so try to use these opportunities for you. Like, fuck others. I'm not your CTO, your colleagues, your company, right? Who cares? Whenever somebody gives you free hands to do something you haven't done before, you should put a super huge smile on your face and learn it, right? And then next time you're going to be, yeah, actually I'm the one who set up the CI, right? I went to YouTube, I used ChatGPT, I learned a little bit, and boom, now I have a new checkpoint in my career. I now know how to set up a GitHub action, write a YAML file, or Circle CI, or Travis, or Jenkins, right? Why the hell not, right? Why limit yourself to a small subset of things when I'm perfectly sure you're capable of doing these things easily, right? So next time when your CTO comes and says that, you're just like, yeah, I'll gladly sit, learn, and do it. It's going to take me 2 days because I haven't done it before. And he's probably going to have to be, well, of course, I mean, logic, yes, right? Can we find somewhere your VS Code profile? I mean, my VS Code is super dumb, right? I have nothing in my VS Code. It's just default theme with a background. I'm using this extension for a background. And that's it. It's just a text editor, right? So shortcuts are everything, really. How important do you think DSA and other topics are? Irrelevant completely. Not completely, like knowing hash tables and some of these things. I mean, no knowledge is useless. It would be absolutely idiotic for me to neglect knowledge. Any knowledge, agriculture knowledge, is going to help you in life. But when it comes to practice, data structures and algorithms are going to have very little impact on you, especially in the world of web, right? Because you have a select component of 10 items. What are you going to optimize, right? So what people don't realize when it comes to data science, algorithms and data structures, at least in the browser, is that no matter how good you are at solving these clever problems, you can't really optimize things which are out of your hand. Like, if you want to optimize things, you have to go to the V8 level, write some C++, contribute to stuff there. It's very hard to optimize JavaScript because JavaScript is a very abstract language, right? So are you going to be like, should I use linear search on these 10 list of options, or should I use something else, right? But who cares, right? Like, it's meaningless. There's no optimization there. So if you want to build web pages, it's very, very rare that the knowledge of data structures and algorithms is going to help you, right? It's going to maybe help you when you think about it. So I think system level design things is way more important. And I think these things can help you a lot, right? So knowing what an event emitter is, like everything in the web development is always an event emitter, right? Knowing about caching, like memoization, for example, concept, good to know. How WebSockets work. What is a socket, right? How HTTP works. What is an HTTP, right? So these types of things could be useful in your everyday work. Algorithms, data structures, But you should still know what you're doing. I mean, you absolutely should, but I don't think algorithms and data structures have much to do with that, to be honest with you, right? Because you're not going to be implementing your own linked list. You're not going to be implementing your own search algorithm. You're never going to be doing any of this. And again, this is not a matter of preferences. This is not a matter of opinions. This is a matter of facts, right? The fact is you will never implement a searching or sorting algorithm in web development, right? And that's just how it is. What is the problem with this? The problem with this is that as the years go by, you're going to forget things. You know, I studied 15 years ago, right? So I'm not suggesting that it's useless. It's not. But it just evaporates because you're not using it. And then you can derive from the fact that you're not using it, you can probably say, well, then it's useless. If I'm not using it, then it's probably useless, right? Many of you, I assume, or some of you here maybe are young, and maybe you're fresh, you maybe just finished your school, maybe you just finished your studying. That's great. Maybe you still have these things in your mind, you're very proud, you've spent a lot of time, knowing this sort of stuff. But in 10, 15, 20 years, if you're not using these things, a lot of these things are going to have... I mean, do you really believe that I can sit now and implement a shell sort, a bubble sort? I don't freaking remember almost anything. Haven't seen this in 15 years, right? Do I know what it is and blah, blah, blah? Sure. But you cannot memorize these things. They're very theoretical. You learn them in your university, you pass an exam, and you move on, right? So that is the problem, right? Yeah, maybe, but I had to do priority list for, I mean, these are very rare occasions. And actually when I really wish that these occasions are more often, because solving these things is fun. But yeah. Yeah. That's how it is. That's how it is. All right, fellas. I think we should round up. It's 1 a.m. here, but I freaking loved these discussions. So nice. Yeah, I think I'm gonna round up. What is to say? I've used Vue.js for many years. I love Vue. In fact, to be very honest with you, I think I love all of the UI libraries. They're all great. It's very hard to make up your mind. I wouldn't mind working with Angular or Vue or Stencil or Svelte. They're all very nice libraries. They have some good things, some bad things. None of them are ideal. All of them lack in a certain domain. And again, as I said before, if you have core fundamental skills, you will write solid code in with any tool. And if you don't have the skills, no tool is gonna deprive you of bad code. So that's just how it always has been and always will be, right? And it doesn't matter, Rendo. If you were writing Vue at work, you would probably be saying now, oh, I wish I can be writing Svelte at work. And if you're writing Svelte at work, you would probably be saying now, I wish I can be writing React at work, right? So it's always like that, right? It's always going to be like that, right? There's always, the grass is greener on the other side, right? Yeah, I don't like Next.js either, and I don't use these abstractions, right? But all right, guys, thank you very much. I wish you everybody great time, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. I think I'm gonna stream tomorrow again, most likely. I don't know yet. I have to figure it out, but we'll see. Locraine, thank you very much, man, for great insights. Thank you for being here, and everybody else as well. And I wish you guys well. Good night. Peace out, everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.